She thought the pain of losing him would be the end of her. But in the silence of her grief, God whispered something that changed everything. If you've ever had someone walk away and wondered how you'd survive the wreckage, this story will stay with you. Because what happened to her wasn't just heartbreak, it was holy ground. When her husband left, so did her strength. But in the place of betrayal, she found a deeper presence. Not a quick fix, not a fairy tale ending, but a healing that was real. Stay until the end, and you'll remember, even when people walk out, God walks in. Even when love fails, grace doesn't. There are some kinds of silence you can't describe until you've heard them yourself. It wasn't the silence of a peaceful morning or the stillness of a home before sunrise. It was a silence that felt abandoned. A silence that swallowed every sound except the ache in her chest. Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing the clothes from the night before. She hadn't slept, hadn't moved, hadn't really breathed. The note he left was still sitting on the kitchen counter, 4 sentences long. And yet, it had emptied the entire house. He was gone. No fight, no goodbye. Just gone. They'd been married for 9 years, built a little life together. Sunday mornings, laundry nights, shared playlists, and inside jokes. She thought that meant something. She thought they meant something. But apparently, not enough to stay. She replayed their last conversation over and over. There had been tension. Yes, they'd argued more lately. Finances, fatigue, his growing distance, but she never thought he'd be the one to walk away. He was always the one who promised he'd stay. That was his thing. I don't quit. But he did. He did quit. And now Sarah sat in the quiet, too stunned to cry, too numb to rage. Her wedding ring still on her finger. Her future now a question mark. What do you even do when someone you built your life around just exits? She didn't tell anyone that day. Not her sister. Not her best friend. She didn't call work. She didn't turn on the TV or music or the lights. She just sat. The world kept moving outside her window, but inside, everything stopped. The next day, she woke up with swollen eyes and no appetite. And for the first time in years, she didn't know how to talk to God. It wasn't that she didn't believe anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was just confusion. Why would you let him leave? Why didn't you stop him at the door? Why didn't you warn me? Why does this hurt so much if you're supposed to be my peace? The questions didn't come out loud. They just stirred, quietly, in the hollow of her chest. She stood in the kitchen that morning, staring at the coffee maker like it was a puzzle she'd never solved before. She had prayed in this kitchen for years. Prayers of gratitude. Prayers for her marriage. For healing, for strength. And yet, here she stood, alone. She tried to pray, not eloquently, not out loud, just something raw, half-formed. God, I don't know how to talk to you right now, but I need you. Please, say something. Nothing happened. No flash of light, no sudden warmth, just silence. Again, but this silence didn't feel quite like the silence of the day before. It wasn't full of absence. It felt like something was waiting, like she wasn't alone, even if she couldn't feel the presence yet. That afternoon, she got in her car. She didn't know where she was going, just away. Somewhere she could cry without worrying who would hear. She drove for nearly an hour, ending up in a park on the edge of town, tucked behind a church she'd only been to once years ago. She parked, turned off the engine, and broke. Tears she had held in since the morning he left came like a flood. Her sobs shook her body, the kind of pain that makes you gasp for breath between words. "I thought I was enough. I thought you were holding this marriage. I don't want to start over. I don't want to be alone. And finally, God, why didn't you stop him?" Now this next part, I can't explain with theology. I can't give you a verse for it. All I can do is tell you what Sarah told me. She said in that moment, that very moment, something happened in the car. She didn't hear an audible voice, but it was clearer than a whisper, stronger than a thought. It was peace. And then, a sentence, right into her spirit. "He left you, but I never will." She froze. The tears didn't stop, but the ache changed. It was like someone had sat beside her, not to fix it, not to rush it, but to be with her. That's when she knew. Her husband had left the marriage, but God had not left her. She wasn't okay yet, but she wasn't alone. Grief is strange. It doesn't follow the rules. It doesn't show up when it's convenient. And it doesn't leave when you ask it to. Sarah learned that quickly. The morning after her breakdown in the car, she woke up with puffy eyes and a headache. But something was different. Not the circumstances. He was still gone. The bed still felt too big. But her spirit had shifted. Not fixed, but shifted. Something inside her, fragile as it was, believed she could stand. So she did. She got up, showered, made coffee, even if she only took one sip. And then she sat with her Bible, not to read anything specific, just to open it, to say with her actions, "God, I'm still here." And to her surprise, the verse her eyes fell on was Isaiah 43:2. "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." She read it again, slower. It didn't say, "if you pass through the waters." It said, "when." That was the moment she stopped expecting God to prevent the storm, and started trusting him to carry her through it. Over the next few weeks, Sarah didn't magically bounce back. Some mornings were good. Others, she didn't get out of bed until noon. Grief came in waves. One moment, she'd feel steady, hopeful even. The next, she'd hear a song they used to dance to and fall apart all over again. But here's what changed. She started inviting God into the grief instead of hiding it from him. Instead of pretending to be strong, she just was. Broken, confused, needy. And she discovered something. God didn't flinch. He didn't need her to clean up first. He didn't expect her to have the answers. He just wanted her honesty. One night, she journaled a prayer that said, "I don't know who I am without him, but I want to know who I am with you." That was the turning point. It wasn't long after that when something unexpected happened. Sarah got a message on social media from a woman named Danielle. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. When she opened the message, her heart nearly stopped. Danielle was someone she hadn't spoken to in over 10 years, a woman she met at a retreat when she was still in college. The message said, "Hi, Sarah. This may sound strange, but I had a dream last night. We were sitting on a bench and you were crying. I reached over, held your hand, and we prayed together. I don't know what's going on, but I woke up with a deep need to tell you. You are not forgotten, and God is still writing your story. If this makes any sense at all, I'm here." Sarah couldn't breathe. She stared at the message for 10 minutes. Then she broke down again, not because she was sad, but because, for the first time in weeks, she felt seen. By God, by someone, by the universe itself. What are the odds? She hadn't talked to Danielle in a decade. She hadn't posted anything about what happened. And yet somehow, this stranger-turned-sister had a dream, a prayer in the middle of the night, and sent it. That's when Sarah remembered what she felt in the car. He left you, but I never will. And now, this wasn't coincidence. This was confirmation. She replied. They talked, prayed, and slowly, Sarah started realizing something no one had ever taught her. God doesn't just speak through thunder. Sometimes he whispers through people, through timing, through dreams, through the messages we almost ignore. Her pain didn't evaporate, but now it had purpose. Her heart wasn't fully healed, but now it had hope. That week, Sarah made a decision. She took off her wedding ring, not as a sign of bitterness, not as an act of defiance, but as a symbol of release. She whispered, I'm letting go, not of love, but of the story I thought I had to live. And for the first time, in a long time, she smiled. Sarah didn't set out to be anyone's inspiration. She didn't wake up thinking, let me turn my broken heart into a platform. All she wanted was to survive, to breathe again without feeling like her lungs were full of bricks, to sit at a dinner table without feeling like a ghost was across from her. But grief, in the hands of God, never stays wasted, and hearts that break open, if surrendered, always let more light in. It began unexpectedly. One Sunday afternoon, her pastor's wife called. A young woman in their church had been left by her fiancé 3 weeks before the wedding, completely blindsided, humiliated, devastated. She won't talk to anyone, the pastor's wife said softly. But I don't know why. I just feel like you might be the one she'd listen to. Sarah hesitated. She wasn't a counselor. She didn't have neat, tidy answers, but she did know what it felt like to lie awake at 2 a.m., wondering what she'd done wrong. So she said yes. They met at a coffee shop. The girl looked like someone who had cried herself hollow. Tired eyes, trembling hands, half-finished sentences. Sarah didn't jump in with solutions. She didn't quote 5 scriptures and smile with religious optimism. She just sat there, listened, let the silence stretch without trying to fix it. Then, when the tears paused for breath, she simply said, You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're grieving a future that you built in your heart. And that loss deserves space. The girl looked up, startled. Not because the words were shocking, but because they were exactly what she needed someone to say. And in that moment, Sarah saw something she hadn't seen in herself before. God wasn't just healing her, he was using her. From there, little by little, things began to shift. She started meeting women who had quietly whispered their own heartbreaks, husbands who left, partners who betrayed, lives that collapsed without warning. And every time she sat across from one of them, something happened. The ache in her own story made room for theirs. She wasn't giving advice, she was giving presence. And that was the gift she hadn't known she could offer. One night, months later, she stood in her kitchen, cup of tea in hand, music playing softly, and she smiled. Not because everything had turned out the way she wanted, but because She wasn't the same woman anymore. She was stronger, softer, wiser, not bitter, not numb, but alive in a way that only comes from walking through fire and still choosing faith. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To realize that the story you never asked for, the pain you would have traded in a heartbeat, has now become the very soil where someone else finds safety. Sarah didn't choose this path, but she chose to walk it with God. And that decision changed everything. There's a kind of healing that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with trumpet blasts or sudden epiphanies. It tiptoes in. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, while you're folding laundry and humming a worship song you forgot you knew, it doesn't ask for permission. It simply wraps itself around your soul and whispers, "You're not the same, but you're still whole." That's what Sarah felt now. Not that everything had been restored to what it was, but that something deeper had been born from what broke. She had forgiven. Not quickly, not all at once, but fully. She had learned to live without pretending, to cry without shame, to laugh without guilt. And most miraculously, she had opened her heart again, not to romance necessarily, but to the possibility that joy could return, that goodness wasn't gone forever, that God, even in the silence, had never stopped writing. 1 year after the day he left her, Sarah lit a candle in the church prayer room. She sat in the stillness, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you for not rescuing me the way I begged you to. You did something far greater. You resurrected me." That night, she wrote in her journal, "This is not the story I would have chosen, but it's the one that brought me back to life." Let's pray. Father, for the one listening right now, who's still in the middle of the heartbreak, still wondering if they'll ever feel whole again, remind them that you are near, not just near to the healed, but near to the crushed, the confused, the betrayed, the ones who feel like their story just shattered in their hands. Hold them the way you held Sarah. Speak to them in the quiet. Restore what was stolen. And when they feel like they have nothing left, let them know you're not done yet. Because even in the valley, you are still the author. Even in the pain, you are still the Redeemer. Even in the silence, you are still God. Amen. Now, friend, if this story touched you, if you felt even a flicker of hope where there was only numbness before, then you're not alone, and you don't have to keep walking through it in silence. This channel isn't just for watching. It's a sacred space to belong. So if you believe God is still working through your pain, still redeeming broken places, still writing hope into your midnight hours, subscribe today and join a growing community of people just like you, people who have been broken but are still beloved, people who know grief but are learning to hope again. And in the comments below, tell us, where did God meet you in your grief? Your story matters, and it may just be the light someone else needs to find their way. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay close to God. He's already holding you.